It's kind of cold, I think.
What's wrong with
Really got a pair of jeans and a t-shirt I could wear. I really don't have place.
No, you're perfect.
Oh, no.
Look, you're right in the middle.
Sorry, I had to work.
So we'll just go around. I'll let all y'all introduce yourselves, and then basically the first question I ask is like, I don't want to start off on a negative note. So it'll be like, over the past 5 to 10 years, or just even in your all's lifetimes, how have you seen transgender rights progress? And then from that conversation, we can go to the crazy shit that's happening right now, and what can be taken away. I think that's a good way to frame it.
Sure.
If that's cool with you all.
Alright.
Are you ready over there, McGowan?
Just gotta make sure you stay in there.
Am I in there?
Yes.
Cool.
It's
We're gonna
alright.
ride style with gangster.
I guess we'll should I make
You
it
can
go
start
live and
Facebook,
give
that's
everybody a
fine.
second to come on?
Hmm?
Should I make it go live and give everybody a second to come on? To join in on live?
Yeah, if you want to, that's fine.
Alright, well I'm gonna start then. And we have everything on this one good, right?
Yep.
And then we're on, did you put this on the, what do you call it? Hotspot?
On
Yeah.
what?
On the
No,
hotspot?
I took it off the hotspot.
That one. I
Do you,
think so.
should we put it on?
No, it should be on the. It should be on the not the Wi-Fi because it's really really bad.
Okay. Sounds good. Alright,
And
well, I'm
that
gonna
computer's
start
like
it.
cut out 15 times.
You ready?
Awesome. Hey friends, welcome. Back to, I don't know what we're gonna call this, Blowfish Roundtable or something. We need a name for these things, but last one went really well. Hopefully y'all got to check it out. We talked a lot about sexual assault awareness, and basically what we do is we just invite friends in here who have experiences with the stuff that's going on in the news right now. And what we want is people, everyday people, talking about the stuff that's going on. A lot of times you turn on the news, and what you read is from people who they might be educated on the subject, but not have lived through it, like the people that we have on here. So that's really why we're doing these roundtable discussions. This is going to be about transgender rights and really the craziness that's been going on right now in America, along with 50,000 other things. So I'm going to let them go around and kind of introduce themselves, and then we'll start with the conversation. So have at it.
Cool. I'm Ryan.
I'm Kason.
I'm Bianca.
I'm Brady.
It's cool. So most of them I've known for a long time, and like I said, it's just everyday people that we want on here to share their story. So where I really want to start this is on less of a negative note and more on a positive note. So I guess we'll just start with, I don't know who's the oldest here, we probably shouldn't shout out ages, but over the past, anybody can jump in right now, over the past, 5, 10, even your lifetime, how have you seen transgender rights, kind of progress from where they were in the past? Do you have any examples of this is so much easier nowadays compared to what it was?
Yeah, well, I think yes, because people are talking about it, for me personally, I knew I was trans when I was, 6 years old, but I didn't have a name for it, I just knew that stuff didn't match, and that it wasn't okay to talk about, but, here I am, 33, does that make me the oldest?
Yeah.
I'm online talking about, trans, and, that's okay, that's a safe, so, which isn't the situation for everyone, but luckily, for me here in Louisville, I feel safe talking about it.
Yeah, and Casey's talked a lot about this subject, and you've done a lot in the community really to really push it forward here in Louisville. Louisville's definitely progressive compared to the rest of Kentucky, but it's not exactly, hippie Los Angeles. You know what I mean? It's not that far out. So, yeah. Do you might have any other examples of
Yeah, I guess the past 2 years maybe not be the best examples, but anything before 2016, I would say there was the acceptance of healthcare, showing the equality of gender reaffirmation surgeries being equivalent to having a broken arm and being able to have that kind of insurance to cover those kind of procedures. even our medications being able to be covered and recognized. I remember I remember going into a doctor's office and having to spend $800 on a month's worth of hormones just to be able to live my life comfortably. And of course, there was a lot of times that was just impossible to do.
Yeah.
Now that insurance covers things like that, it's much easier.
Yeah, and not to get off subject too much, but I guess we should, it's not like you flip a switch and then, hey, I'm gonna, switch genders, or it's a lot of work that goes into it. I don't know if, one of y'all want to talk about a little bit, just briefly, obviously people can Google and stuff like that, but just briefly how much, I guess work would be the word for it, that goes into it, dedication really, that goes into, being transgender. You want to talk a little bit about it, maybe Bianca, like every day you gotta take, your hormones and stuff.
Sure. I mean, I don't necessarily see it as dedication. I just see it as a daily routine in my life.
That's a good way to put it.
So it's no different than taking your vitamins on a daily basis. We just have, it's just a lot more that has to go into it. Earlier in life, I guess, I grew up in an era where you had to wear an article of clothing that was of your birth-given gender in order to make sure that the cops don't pull you over and say, "Hey, I know that you're a cross-dresser or you're transgender," or whatever term they would use at the time. And if they were, if they were mean about it, they could easily just arrest you for not having those articles of clothing.
Wow, that's wild.
So, being able to, seeing that transition happen over the years and into where we are today, those kind of things, it speaks volumes as to how we've evolved.
Yeah, for sure.
But every day, it's just, my everyday routine is no different than anyone else's everyday routine.
Yeah, that's cool. And there is a lot of people out there who, you mentioned healthcare, who can't afford that stuff, or aren't, we speak to all those people too, and feel for them who, identify, but might not have access to all the things that, other people do. So definitely shout out to all you out there. We're with you just as much as, everybody who's been through the hormone therapy and everything like that too. So yeah, for sure. Any other examples of how stuff may have gotten easier? Birdie, I know. You're a little bit younger.
Yeah, I went to Texas. Here it was a big thing because insurance didn't cover it, and I didn't know where to go, and I didn't know what to do. And then I went to Texas, and somebody told me about this program. It's called the Highland Clinic, and they cover your doctor's expenses. They cover your labs. They cover literally everything except for your prescription.
Wow.
And then with like RX app and all that, you can get your discount on your prescription. So for me, that was part of my big anxiety about actually finally starting to, start my hormone therapy and stuff, was finding doctors that I could afford, because I'm a barber cosmetologist. I don't have insurance. So, and they were just so open, and they just bring you in and they love you, and they were so great. And when I came back to Kentucky, it was able to follow me, even though it was over state lines. And so they didn't even know if it was going to be able to work, and they made it work, and it was a very easy thing.
That's
for
cool.
me. Yeah.
What was it called?
It's called the Kind Clinic.
The Kind Clinic? That's awesome. Shout out to the Kind Clinic.
Yeah, they're really awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Can I jump at
yeah.
even before you get to the point of transition, there's a really hard choice that some people have to make between living your truth and losing your friends, losing your family.
Yeah.
So luckily I still have my friends, still have my job, everything, about that is great. My family, not so much.
Yeah.
So, that was a hard decision.
Exactly, and it's been a constant theme. I don't know, listen to our podcast and stuff like that, but blowfish all for all means, not just transgender people, not just gay people, not just people, everybody. And that happens a lot. Even to go back to sexual assault victims, kids that are, abused or molested by family members, they come out to their family and their family almost disowns them. Obviously LGBT community, it happens all the time. Dating people from different races and stuff like that. It is hard, especially, when, like you said, it comes to family. But the key is, and I think Birdie hit on it, is find your community. There are people out there, Facebook with us here, us at Blowfish, there are people out there who care. And I think it's horrible, don't get me wrong, the family thing. But I think the big thing, and I think all of y'all, and, have been able to push past it and really find a community that supports you. I think that's super important as far as you know, if that's you who are, you know, getting disowned by your family and stuff like that,
You have to make your own.
yeah. So,
And it sucks, but it's better.
It gets
than
easier.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So we you know, we feel for all y'all out there going through that too. So let's kind of transition a little bit, and Bianca definitely touched on this a lot. Feel free to jump in anytime. But you talked a little bit about, you know, what it was like years ago, and I think right now with what's going on with, you know, basically Trump's going to be making people, you know, basically assigning them a gender, and then it is what it is, and then, you know, your rights are out the window. And I think we're in danger of that stuff, you know, coming back, you know, getting pulled over for, you know, cross-dressing, stuff like that. Are you all scared of anything in particular that, you know, that you're like, oh my gosh, this might come on? Is there anything in your mind that, you know, that normal people out there might not be thinking, you know, everyday people might not be thinking like, oh my gosh, this is a problem that I'm scared of if this stuff goes, you know, south like Trump's planning on right now?
So I would say a couple of different things. So I transitioned quite a long time ago, relatively speaking. So I'm 37. I don't look 37. Like trans never look.
Yeah.
Like we don't.
Youngest, no oldest.
So and I transitioned around, you know, like socially transitioned in 2001 and physically transitioned like 2003. So it's been a while, and you know, that was under the Bush administration. So there were no. Basically, what Trump is trying to do is have us go back a couple decades. Like we survived before the federal government recognized our genders, and will continue to survive. You know, as long as there are human beings, there will be trans human beings. So it is scary. Like the change in the way that people are. You know, the discourse is scary. The way that we're all talking about this is scary, and certainly. I far prefer to have a federal government that acknowledges me as a human being, and you know, part of that is seeing my gender and recognizing my gender. But I am personally not scared that we're going to start being pulled over again and things like that, because society has moved so far.
Yeah.
And like, yes, on every trans-related news article, like never read the comments section. But I will say that I posted something recently on Facebook just saying like different things that people can do to support trans people in this moment, and got an overwhelming response in a positive way, not just from like queer folks and, you know, LGBTQ populated like communities, but from allies who don't necessarily have any other connection with trans community except for knowing me or knowing me and other people in our community. So I think that there's a different, from when I transitioned to now, there's an entirely different level of knowledge, an entirely different level of acceptance, and I think that we have to lean in on each other.
Yeah.
To get through this time.
That was one of the things I wanted to talk about, honestly, because I mean, like I say every time, I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, and like I wanted to ask you all, what are some things that, you know, allies, people out there who do want to help, what are some of the things like, you know, that they can do proactively to help the community in general?
Vote.
Hear that? That's it. Whatever. Vote. Yeah, that's pretty good. Is there anything else, like some of the stuff you might have listed on?
Sure. I mean, what I listed on, I just kind of shot some things off.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly well thought out, but vote was definitely on the list. Because if we have legislators that are supportive of our issues, we'll have better laws.
Yeah, that's true.
And we'll have better interpretation of those laws. Second thing is, I mean, even you know, we don't vote until November 6th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure I don't get the wrong date on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so that's the one big one. But also, in the meantime, we need to be calling our federal legislators, you know, our senators and our representatives, and say, I care about trans issues. It's important that trans people are acknowledged for the gender, you know, for our gender identity, and you know, we can't go back in that regard. Other things are donate to trans organizations. So National Center for Transgender Equality is one. The Trans Lifeline is another. Locally, Louisville Trans Men, we are accepting donations because we help to support the people in our group to change their identity documents.
Yep.
And there are any other number of, you know, the Transgender Law Center and, you know, all sorts of other organizations to support. And then the final thing that I listed was just, if you know trans people, reach out to them, just like, hey, let's get coffee, or hanging in there, or I support you, I'm behind, I've got your back.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
I think that's huge. As far as like, the shirt that they're wearing right now, NCTE, that's who we're gonna donate $10 for every one of these shirts sold. Shirts in National Center of Transgender Equality. So that's pretty cool. We kind of threw them together based off some input. Thank you all. But yeah, just to show your support, because I want something that I can wear out and be like, hey, I support whoever it is, and you might not believe, just like that Believe You shirts we did. I mean, we can't tell how many people came through. We didn't know who the heck they were, but like, thank you. And you're like, that's cool. Like these communities need support from transgender communities to support other communities, and everybody coming together can really move stuff forward for everybody. I think that's a really good point. Is there anything else that you all think people can do, or something that somebody might have helped you in your process, that might have been there for you, or anything that people can do with people in their life that might be coming out as transgender, stuff like that? Is there any like advice you might give to friends and stuff like that?
Well, definitely be sympathetic, be compassionate when you're, if it is something that you are not familiar with, or when someone comes up to you and tries to discuss their transition or their gender identity, don't push them away. Just be, just listen, because really that's what we need at that time.
Yeah.
Is just someone to listen and to be an ear and a shoulder.
Yeah. I think that's for a lot of people. Yeah.
I was just doing a quick Google search before I got here, because thank you for prepping us with some questions. But literally, like, if you search like how to be a trans ally, GLAD pops up.
Yeah.
GLADD, right?
AAD.
AAD. Thank you. Fact check. But there's a really great check when do you vote and how you spell that. There's a really good list. I mean, we could always add more to it, but like, don't assume people's pronouns. Don't assume their sexual orientation. Don't ask them about surgeries. Don't out people. And another thing, like when I was starting my transition, there's sort of this awkward phase for us, because we call it passing, we want to pass as the identity, the gender that we know that we are, and so there's that awkward. So my girlfriend would be really good about like going and checking out the bathroom situation, and reporting back, was it gender neutral? So like that's a big thing, if you don't have gender neutral bathrooms at where you work or your business, consider like flipping that. Starbucks has been doing that recently.
Yeah.
And I just like mad respect for that, because unless you've ever been in the situation where you feel awkward, like where you're literally like holding your pee, or because you're nervous, afraid, whatever, you don't think about that. So that's a big one.
I think the stuff from like bathrooms and all that stuff, obviously it's coming back because politics around the United States right now, but it was such a huge issue. And then you hear about it now and then, but it's more from the perspective of legislation. You rarely hear you never hear stories of people being like, oh my gosh, this happened at my school anymore, where it was like a huge scare. But really, there are people out there probably like who might not know transgender people, might feel a little like, I don't know about this situation, but look at it from the other person's perspective of how much they have to go through, and then really, is it that big of a deal? Because just like
it's gotta be.
Yeah, it's gotta be. And it's a lot for transgender people, obviously, but for everybody, like look at it from their perspective, and then is that really that much skin off your back to like just be considerate and just accept others for who they are? And that's my biggest thing is why not accept everyone for who they are? Like, it's really not that big of a deal. So as far as like the Louisville community and stuff like that, I think that I don't know, well, maybe I'll comment. Louisville Trans Men's an amazing organization. Maybe how to find, if you're a transgender person and you need some resources and stuff like that, or a community. Maybe talk a little bit about how Louisville Trans Men help, the community here, or how like you all might have found your community, just to help others out there.
Sure. So there are a number of different groups. So Louisville Trans Men is one. And don't worry too much about the name. Like, we're open to anyone who is assigned female at birth but feels like their gender is something other than female. So that would include non-binary people, as well as transmasculine folks more broadly. There's also Trans Women National, which is a group for trans women in town. There's U of L has Transformations, which is a student group for trans people who go to the University of Louisville. There are just a number of different groups. There's an emerging group for trans and queer people of color that's kind of starting to form. So a lot of different avenues of support out there in person, in addition to many groups that are online.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned, the University of Louisville here, but people, everywhere. Universities, not all, but in general, I think are pretty accepting, and most across the country now, especially the bigger ones, have communities where you can go and talk to someone, if not a whole club or something like that, but something on the university campus where you can go, and, maybe talk to somebody and, get some help along the way to, what you're going through. Is there anything else that, you'd reach out to people who might be, questioning or going through a hard time, like you talked about earlier, Case? Is there any advice you might give somebody out there right now?
If you're going through a hard time, well, one more group I wanted to add, because sometimes people, I'm Christian, and sometimes people associate like you can't be Christian and trans. So I just want to throw out there, Highland Baptist Church here in Louisville is extremely inclusive. There's a group, just come in, you're welcome. So everybody's welcome. But I mean, advice, you have to live your truth. Make sure you do that safely. If, like we talk about that, at our group sometimes, like if you're not in a place, where you can come out, like don't put yourself in harm, to do that. But yeah, just like you said, lean in on your community and have an affirmation jar for yourself, or leave Post-its on the mirror, like remind yourself you're valid, and when people tell you nice things, write them down so that when you're having a tough time, like you can lean back on that.
Yeah, that's cool. Anything else you want to add? Not really. Awesome. Cool. I don't really have, basically we want to get on here and just discuss. Is there anything else y'all like want to bring up or talk about as far as what's going on right now, or just in general that you all might want to mention? So that's come get your hair chopped by Birdie. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, you can follow all them on their social medias. I don't know if you want to shout out your last names. Obviously, I know Bianca you've been featured a couple of different places. So
You can find me at Bianca Bowser, Bianca.Bowser on my Facebook page, or Bianca Nicole _1 for Instagram, Skype.
yeah, and Bianca is fantastic. I sent some messages out yesterday, and she was like, "What's it about?" And then I told her, and she was like, "Oh, I'll be there in like no time." So Bianca's busy. She's got 2 children and full-time job and everything. So not that everybody's not busy, but thank you for coming out too. And
Yeah, no problem.
yeah, thank all of you all for coming out. We'll mention one more time, for allies, if you want to help, GLAAD, GLAAD, NTC, National Transgender Center for Equality, to donate to. I think as far as what we've researched, there's all kinds of good organizations out there, but that one we found would be good. And then obviously vote some more would probably be the biggest thing. So not to push anything, but hopefully the shirts will be ready just so you can support, just like we want to support Be Online tonight, so that'd be pretty cool. And then if y'all have any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us at Blowfish, and we'll try to direct you. We don't know everything, but we'll try to direct you to where you need to go, need help, and the communities that that we think might be able to help you, or put you in touch with one of these amazing people who can get you to where you want to be, or get the help that you think you may need. So it's pretty cool. So thank all of y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see y'all later. Yeah. Is that cool?
Thank you.
Yeah. Perfect. How long was it? 15 minutes?
About that, yeah.
Perfect. It's like 15 to 20. I feel like if someone sees 20 minutes, they're more likely to watch like anything over 30 or 40 minutes.
I know, sometimes I get on YouTube and I'm like, an hour.
Give it the highlights.
That's what I've been. The only reason I said that is because I got stuck on YouTube the other night. Literally, all this dude uploads is like 12 to 18-minute videos of ants crawling around. Crazy, dude. But it's called like Ant World. I forget what it's called. Ant Universe or something, dude.
Not
Yeah.
watch it.